Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we're going to be talking about loss of a twin today, which is a very interesting topic and very unique. But before we get started with that, I want to remind everybody that my new book, Open to Love, The Secrets of Senior Dating, is out now, and you can buy it on Amazon. It was written by myself and my fiance, Dr. Frank Powers, and it's got a lot of tips and tools in there for you who have lost a partner and who are looking for love in your life, because the number one health issue right now is loneliness. And for those who are interested in finding a new partner, I think you'll find the book great. So go to Amazon and buy it now, and all the proceeds for the book go to the Open to Hope Foundation. Well, Heidi, would you like to introduce our guest today? And we're going to be talking about twin loss.
Okay, Mom. So we will be talking today about a tribute to a twin with someone that knows a lot about twin loss. And as you know, I keynoted at Twinless Twins. I've done that a couple of times, and I've learned so much about twin loss. And I know a lot about sibling loss because my own brother died at the age of 17, but I didn't know that much about twin loss. And it was really interesting to hear the similarities and the differences with sibling loss. And we will be talking today with Monique Richard, who is a twin, and she is also a Toronto-based artist. She experienced the tragic death of her identical twin sister. She has a digital storytelling memoir called With Every Brushstroke, Transforming Pain into Beauty. Welcome to our podcast, Monique.
You know, your site is so interesting, with every brushstroke transforming pain into beauty. It's really interesting because you've not only got talk about your sister, you show pictures, you have audio. I mean, I love the way you've brought all this multimedia together on that. It's really quite lovely and quite compelling, and what a story. Could you talk a little bit about what's different about losing a twin?
I can only speak for my own feelings of loss, but after communicating more with other twins who've lost their twin, it is something really shocking and jarring to the system, because all I know from being born a twin is having this mirror, having this best friend since birth. The joke of having a womb mate and the lighthearted part of it. But when Suzanne died, I literally felt like I lost part of myself. Although we weren't attached at the hip by any means, we were very, very close, and would talk many times a day. Just of course, that old adage about finish each other's sentences, and just this incredible connection with her. And it was seamless. And when she died, after a 10-year battle with her health, where I'd been her caregiver, and so I'd taken this other role with her. So there were so many things that I lost when she died, when she finally succumbed to her health battles in 2009. And it was this sense of not knowing who I was on my own. It was the first time I looked in the mirror and I realized, wow, I'm by myself now.
Monique, I think that's what I thought was the most interesting when I went to the Twinless Twin conferences, is it is an identity loss. And also twins, just like you're talking about, would say, I was more of the extroverted twin and they were more of the introverted twin, and they did more of this. I mean, we completed each other totally. And now there's a void that I need to fill because I'm used to having my twin around. It's really unbelievable. I can't even imagine experiencing that depth of loss, right?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Although actually, we strive to be individuals.
Right.
There are twins that which I find beautiful, but also kind of tragic, these stories of these older twins that end up dying in the same room. I mean, if that had happened, that would have been fine, but that are so close that they're symbiotic. Suzanne and I had healthy relationships outside of each other, but the core feeling of having this one person that you trust with everything. There was nothing that Suzanne didn't know about me, and likewise. And I guess learning since not having my twin that not everyone else has that. Like, it was a gift. You know, the one thing you recognize when you lose someone so close, the pain that I have, I mean, you only grieve as much as you loved. So I'll take the pain that I've gone through to really show just how lucky I was to have had that kind of love in my life. And I know that now, that some people never really have ever really experienced that level of connection with anyone, even their partners, sadly. She had an extreme health battle for almost a decade. And there was a sense, underlying sense, like, you know, I may not have Suzanne forever. And there was something about going out with her and being seen in public and have people recognize, oh, you guys are twins. And it was really bittersweet, because there was that unspoken thing inside me that was suggesting, you know, enjoy this while you have it.
So you really wanted to enjoy the twin identity and being a twin because you knew that it wasn't going to be forever, it sounds like.
You
as
know,
sicker.
yeah. She rose like a phoenix many times. Like, she was just so inspirational. That's actually one of the titles in my digital storytelling memoir, is Rise of the Phoenix. And it was, what she went through in her trials with her health. But at some point, your body's just going to say, you know what, it's been too much.
Were you a little bit nervous that you might get some of the illnesses that she had? I think you talk about that a little bit.
I do. One of the things is Suzanne and I were born with a rare blood disorder. So that would leave us predisposed to a lot of things, many kinds of cancers, and viral and bacterial. And so that was a really, really hard thing to have survivor guilt, and to have this sort of sense of guilt of why is this all happening to her? You know, I would have given up. You know, like, give me this burden, God, like, I'll take half of this from her. If she's meant to go through this, just give me some of it. Ironically, since Suzanne's passed, I've gone through and obviously survived cancer. And I'm not sure where my health will lead. I'm trying very hard to be as healthy as I can. But yeah, no, those feelings of seeing our bodies change, you know, she, you know, got experienced West Nile virus. She'd had strep and staph bacterial infections. She'd lost the ability to walk twice in 1 year. You know, we were very active prior to her illnesses. We loved to go out dancing. You know, one of the paintings that's behind me actually reflects her dancing. So the series of paintings that I did is a 6-series painting, oil painting. So they're all quite large. Being an artist, and my twin was actually an artist as well. After her death, I knew, even though with the incredible love I have from my very supportive husband and my family, I wasn't doing well. Like, I was existing. I was purely kind of existing. And I knew ultimately that art was going to be the thing that was going to save me.
Didn't you also have a dream?
There were a couple of things. There's, in my chapter, Butterflies and Whispers, it sort of speaks about the kind of after death communications that people have had. And I think this is an older book, but I think really worth picking up for your listeners if they're curious about something. It's very, very sweet, but it accounts, I think it's like 1,500 accounts of people who have, you know, they've had dreams, or they've had messages, or these uncanny events happen. They really feel their loved ones communicating with them. And one of the things Suzanne had said is, aren't you drawing me? Like, you know, just these little comments, like, oh, you're gonna paint me. And there were just innumerable things like that. In my deciding to do a series for Suzanne, I was actually using references that my twin had. So one of the things about this project is I wanted it to be like a scrapbook that's come to life. So I wanted to give the viewer this chance to see. So I think this project is interesting on a lot of different levels. It's interesting if somebody's experiencing grief, or it wants to use art therapy, or to be creative. I think it's a really interesting project for somebody who just actually wants to look and see what an artist does. Like, how did the idea come to fruition? I was using Suzanne's reference materials. there's one poignant part in the digital storytelling where I show an image of her scrapbook that I'd opened, and there and behold was a paintbrush she'd left in the spine. And even now, like when I open that book, it chokes me up because I didn't, it was a good paintbrush. I could have used it, but I left it there because, I had her art supplies that she hadn't used yet. Right now I'm using her watercolor supplies and I'm teaching myself this. And I'm really angry because I'm like, twin, you could have taught me this. Like, why aren't you here? I mean, I can say these things now and smile, but for years, I mean, there's a reason this process took me about a decade, well, longer than a decade to go through. And that's another thing I'd like to make very clear. I think, especially in North America, people want to rush through everything. Maybe other cultures seem to revere and to honor the grieving process and understand that it could be lifelong. And some of these paintings must have taken thousands of hours. And I remember someone saying, I heard through the grapevine, after 3 months after Suzanne died, they kind of said, oh, Monique should get over it. So it's callous. It's actually, and thank you for your resource and what you folks have done and other like yourselves, where people are realizing they've got these resources and places to go to deal with their grief and move through it and get to a better place.
So
Right.
Monique, what would you like people to know about twin loss?
I would never say that my pain is greater than someone else's because I'm someone who loses a child or their parent that they're really, really close to. That it can be profound because that's all. If you've never been a twin, how would you know this level of closeness? And I think most people have compassion. Well, I would like, my putting this project out is a way of sharing the gift of what I had. I really feel like I had this incredible gift and I thank God every day for that. I don't want to make the prime focus is that I was a twin. Because I want to honor everyone's losses. But I think my story being a little bit unique, the fact that we're both artists, and I'm honoring her art by creating this series of paintings for her. And in order to get through my loss, I think that's what makes it a really interesting story. When Suzanne was ill, I was, begging and praying to God, but I had a lot of anger when Suzanne died. How could you let this happen and all of that? And I had to reconcile with this idea of heaven and to create a sense of heaven through paint. And so these images and having them, surrounding my apartment with them, is a way of keeping her alive. And they're very, very personal. I do have, through Fine Art America, I do have a special section there under my name that people can find. And if they want to order prints, feel free. The very first image that I did of the series was actually sold. And that was the only one that I felt I actually needed it to go because it was called Identity. And so the very thing where I spoke earlier, what you asked me about, is that crisis of identity. I feel like it was a beautiful painting. I mean, it's a self-portrait, but it's extremely raw.
What comes up for me is I was just in Las Vegas in the Sphere and I saw Bono.
Oh, wow.
You
at the
too?
Sphere, and this is what Bono said. This is the marriage of technology and art. And I want to say your site, like
Oh, thank you.
is
Yes.
combining art and technology. And I want to thank you for doing that. And I hope people will go on and see the wonderful ideas. And I hope it inspires people to want to be able to pay tribute and create their own kind of art.
How has it helped you to heal?
Well, you can only cry so much. You can only, and yeah, tears are healing. I'm going to forget who quoted this, but art is a wound turned into light. So to take something so painful, and transform it somehow, it's like looking for the silver lining. It's like picking up your cross and, bearing your cross and picking it up and learning to live with it and seeing where that's supposed to lead you. And
maybe even picking the cross and decorating it and changing it so that it transforms.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was always an artist, and Suzanne was always an artist. So I knew that, at first it was just angry scribbles, and I show sketches and I talk about my process and the pain that I went through and the fact that it took so long to process it, and why, I would set up and start, one day to start working on one of the paintings. And then I would set up and I would just start to bawl because I wasn't ready that day. But then the next day I could, and I'd lose myself in it. And there were moments where I felt like I wasn't even like, I'm a classically trained artist. I hoping that I'll continually improve with my skill level. But this series is the most important thing I've ever done in my life because so much of my heart is in there. There's so many tears. And there was a moment at the end of, when I would finally put my brush down on a specific painting, and I look back and I'd see that I've painted her likeness. There's one in particular your viewers, well, they'll have to see to go to my site, but it's called April 19th, and that's memorializing the day that she died. And I needed to portray the day that she died as something, there's tons of symbolism, which I explain in the project. And it's my making sense of it, because when someone dies, a painful, long drawn out process, it takes so much time for the caregiver to recover, and we ruminate over the details, and your brain can only handle so much at a time because you're still going through shock. But by using brushstrokes, I was able to transform something slowly into something that became beautiful. And I was able to honor her. For whatever reason, as humans, we need to tell our stories, and it can be so cathartic. And that's what I'm really hoping, that if I can inspire someone, I just think working through things is so important, because then people can get stuck and they don't move past their pain. It becomes this thing that is around their neck and they can't embrace joy anymore.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on the show today. And thank you so much for sharing your tribute to Suzanne with the world. Really a wonderful thing that you've done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Monique. And I know that your sister is your guiding light. And thank you for building awareness for sibling loss, for twin loss, and for how we can heal through the arts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks everybody for joining us on this show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.